Hey guys, welcome to ASVAB topic of the day. So in this little series, we tend to focus on like a specific math topic and just give you a lot more detail to try to help you study for it. As a little reminder or note, we are really a mobile app, and so there's a link down below so you can go and check us out. But we got over 1,400 questions and feedback for every question, and we got like recommended videos that customize to you as you're answering questions, a bunch of little games you can play within the app that help you get ready for the ASVAB. So I recommend checking that out as well. It's free to install. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So we'll kind of start with like the easiest absolute value question, and then move into some of the harder ones that you can see on the ASVAB. All right, so when we start off, we just have something like this, absolute value of -7. Okay, so when you just see that, you just make the number positive. So if it's absolute value of 7, that just equals 7. Absolute value of -7, same thing, equals 7. So it's always, if you see a negative number, it's just whatever the number is, but just make sure it's positive. Okay, so that's really like the simplest absolute value question you could get. Next, if we just have absolute value of x, let's say equals 12. Okay, so for this, we'll have two answers, right? So it'll always be x equals something, right? And so in this case, it's going to be 12, but then also -12, right? And so the reason for this is, if we just look at the example above, right? When it was absolute value of 7, that just equaled itself 7, and that's what we're doing here, right? So the absolute value of 12 would equal 12, and then the -12 is the same as this thing right here, right? So, right, the absolute value of -12 is just the positive number, so it's just 12, right? And so that's how we get 12 and -12. All right, don't want to overthink this, right? Just feeling like there's always going to be two answers, one positive, one negative, in a case like this. All right, let's erase, give myself a little more room. And get the marker back. Okay, next step. Okay, so this is where we start thinking about putting it into two equations, right? Which in our little key over on the right over here, you can see where it says two equations. All right, so absolute value of x minus 5 equals 12. Okay, so when you see something like this, what we're going to do is we're going to take the absolute value sign off, and we're going to do two equations. The first one will equal, we're just taking the absolute value thing off and just doing that. Okay, so if you see this, all right, we just add 5 to both sides because we want x by itself. 12 plus 5 is 17. X equals 17. Okay, so that's the first part of the answer. And then the second one, again, we have our x minus 5, and this time we're going to make the answer negative. Okay, so now it's -12. And that's all we have to do, right? We'll add 5 to both sides. And then we have -12 plus 5 is -7. Now, if you thought -12 plus 5 is -17, we'll look at a quick number line. Okay, so if I have, like, there's our -12, and here, like 5 spots to the right, it's -7, to the left, it's -17. Okay, so if it's going this way, this is getting greater, right? So like -12 plus 2 is -10. -12 minus 2 If it's minus, then it's going in this direction. Negative 12 minus 2 is negative 14. So we have videos out on number lines, so if that's confusing to you, I'd go ahead and check that out, and I'll include that in the description as well, in case you had a hard time finding it. We do have quite a few videos. Okay, so that's that one. So let's do do another one, right? So that's really all we got to remember is we take the absolute value sign off. One answer is just positive, so we just leave it the same. The second answer, we're just going to make it negative. That's all we got to do. Okay, so what if we see absolute value x plus 2 equals 7. Okay, so same thing. At first, we just take the absolute value sign off. X plus 2 equals 7. Subtract 2 from both sides. 7 minus 2 is 5, right? Okay, so there's our first answer. X equals 5. Okay, and if we want to get the other answer, which we need, again, we just have our x plus 2, right? Same thing that was inside the absolute value, but we just took the absolute value away, and it equals negative this time. So negative 7, right? Subtract 2 from both sides, gotta get x by itself. And then making sure we know how to subtract negatives. So negative 7 minus 2 is not negative 5, but is negative 9, right? Same exact thing. So this time, rather than negative 12, we had a negative 7 here, okay? And it's a minus, so that means it's going this way, right? And so you'd have like negative 9 is less than negative 7, right? Negative 5 is greater than negative 7. Okay, so there's our two answers, 5 and negative 9. All right, so if you got that, like that kind of a question could easily show up the last two questions that we did. Those would be pretty common ASVAB type absolute value questions. But they can get trickier on you depending on how you're doing. And we'd like to be ready for anything. Okay, so what about this one? This one's a little trickier. All right, what if we see absolute value x plus 4, and they throw like a minus 5 outside of it, equals 20. Okay, so they just threw one little trick at us, right? Okay, so we want to get this absolute value thing by itself on the left side. Okay, so let's add 5 to both. All right, so we can get rid of this stupid minus 5. Okay, so then we have absolute value x plus 4 equals 25, right? 20 plus 5 is 25. Okay, and so they just made us do one extra step, right? And now we have exactly what we had before, right? And so again, a lot of times it's really helpful to see these a few different times with some different numbers, right? At first, we just take the absolute value sign off, write it just the way it is. X plus 4 equals 25, and the other one's going to be x plus 4 still, but we're going to make it negative, right? Equals negative 25. Okay, so here we'll just subtract 4 from both sides. 25 minus 4 is 21, so that will be one of our answers. Okay, this one, subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, and again, we're subtracting negatives. That's a skill we want to get comfortable with. And x is going to equal negative 25 minus 4 is negative 29. Right? Again, not negative 21, which is the answer that some people come up with. And most likely that will be an answer choice. Right? Is 21 and negative 21 or 21 and negative 29? So what 1 less than negative 25 is negative 26, 2 less negative 27, all the way to negative 29. Okay, So if you're comfortable with that, you've got the majority of the absolute value type questions that you can see. There really would just be one other exception, which I would not be surprised that it would show up for you. Okay. And that would be if the answer is negative. Okay. So if we have, oh, I want that. We have something like this, x, absolute value, x plus 3 equals negative 8, let's say. Okay, so if this answer is negative and all we have left here is the absolute value over here, it's just called empty set. Oop, forgot to spell. That's not tested on the ASVAB. Empty set. Okay, and so that's just what you want to know is that you see the absolute value equals a negative number is, you know for sure, empty set, right? So the only possible exception here would be if they really tried to get tricky with you. They had something like this, x plus 3, and then it said like plus 10. Sorry, minus 10 equals negative 8. So if you saw something like this, then we would add 10 to each side before we did anything else, right? And when you added 10 to both sides, then that would make this answer positive, right? Because negative 8 plus 10 is 2. Okay, and then now you'd have absolute value of x plus 3 equals 2, and then you could go ahead and solve it. So that would be an extreme exception, but like you go to our key, answer cannot be negative, so that's another big one, right? We definitely want to know that. You'd go and solve it, but once that answer is negative, it's just not, we're not capable of solving absolute value problems where the final answer is negative like this. So if you see that, then you want to know empty set. Okay, so in review, right, when we had just a negative number, like it was absolute value of negative 7, that just equals the same number but make it positive. So that was 7. And we had absolute value of x equals 12. Then there were two answers, both 12 and negative 12. And then we went through solving. And when you solve things like absolute value of x minus 5 equals 12, in that case, then you set up two equations. One where it just says x minus 5 equals 12, right? You just took away the absolute value. And then a second equation where it says x minus 5 equals negative 12. So everything was the same except we made the answer negative rather than positive. You know all that stuff, and you're ready to go for absolute value. You have any questions or comments, please make them down below and we'll respond to them. Thank you.